to the very first Games, Rambling and Backlog podcast. I'm your host, Aaron. Down south we have Levi and Keely.
Hello.
Hello.
So this is a gaming podcast on games, just basic ramblings, and also trying to get through our backlogs. We'll be doing a bit of a giveaway and competition during it, so keep listening and we'll go from there. So, Levi, what have you been playing this week?
This week I've been playing Dark Souls 1. I have managed to use X input wrapper, so that way I can get my DualShock 3 controller working on it, which I find is actually far better because it's more designed around the Sony setup for just playstyle. I do have a lot of problems with just finding around where I'm supposed to go. It's actually quite open in the sense that you can go anywhere, but if you do go somewhere that you probably shouldn't, you'll just get utterly destroyed and lose about 3 levels worth of souls that you've just been waiting to go for your next bonfire. It's really depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm only, 15 hours in, I
Have you
think?
used any guides or anything to try and get through, or no?
I'm trying not to, but I just use one every so often just for a little nudge in a direction.
Yeah. Is there any reason you've started playing that one? Is it because you want to get into Dark Souls 2, or did you just feel like dusting something off the pile?
I just grabbed it in the last Steam sale. I was just like, oh, that seems right, I'll just take this, grab another copy, so we can play co-op. Never played co-op.
Nice.
Yeah, which is somewhat disappointing.
All right. And Keely, what about you?
Well, I actually started playing a wee bit of Orion, the dinosaur game, Orion Prelude, with the podcast's own Levi. Kind of good, bit of multiplayer action, kind of Unreal Engine-ish, bit of fun. Couldn't get past any of the waves of the final waves of dinosaurs, but yeah, it's okay. Probably one of the best bargain games you could possibly ever own and buy, especially with some mates.
Yes.
Have been playing quite a bit of Rogue Legacy because it's my throwaway game for in between rearing a child and helping around the house and stuff like that, which is a roguelite side scroller, upgrades shit, build your castle out bigger, and it's just relentless. Just roguelites are quite vicious, but the coolest thing about it is each time you die, you get like 3 options who you want to kind of be reincarnated back as. So it's kind of like a family tree, but there's like negative traits. So like you can be stereo blind, so you only see in 2D, or you're afraid of heights, so you kind of spin around the other way, so the screen's upside down, and gigantism, there's eye issues and stuff like that. So it's kind of hilarious. You can throw 5 minutes and it gets some decent game time.
That sounds pretty freaking cool, actually.
Highly recommend. I actually got gifted it by Game Planet's own Edward Diego, the mighty Sinos. He gave it to me. He said, hey buddy, saw it on your wish list. And he hooked me up. So big ups to Sinos.
Big ups to ED. Thank you for that. That's awesome. And well, me with busy working 6 days a week and young family, I haven't had a lot of chance to play games. What game has been taking my life, and probably much to the disgust of Mrs. Chicken Man, is Destiny, and I swear that game is actually crack cocaine. Every time I sort of think, oh, I've got a few minutes to play a game, I put on the PS4, go into Destiny, and next thing I know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I've just been grinding, and I've been getting shit RNG drops, and I'm absolutely hooked. So I think I have a problem. And the biggest problem with Destiny that I've got at the moment is that it's actually not making my backlog get any smaller. So this podcast is going to be a great way for me to actually get through and play some of these games that Destiny's been taking my time.
I mean, as a former addict of World of Warcraft, I see where you're at, homie. Like, I got your back. 2 a.m. grinding for like nothing, you know.
That's it though. After two, like last night I was up to would have been about probably 2 or 2:30, I guess. Just finally leveling up my alt toon so that way I can go through and do the raids with a second character and get more gear. And I was just grinding through getting that. Just I spent 3-4 hours doing that last night after missioning House of Cards, which if you haven't seen is freaking awesome. Third season starts next month, so looking forward to that.
Oh,
All right, now actually something I wanted to kind of touch on, which you sort of touched on a little bit with Dark Souls, Levi, was do you think games are in fact getting easier or harder, or is it something that maybe we're just getting more in tune to and more used to?
I think it is a bit of we're getting used to it, but some games I do find seem to be actually just quite easy. I'm not sure if that's because I'm good, but I don't really consider myself really any good. Average at best. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's why I quite like Dark Souls. It's just gives me a challenge.
Yeah. And how about you, Keely?
well, when I internalize this comment and I with this kind of idea, and I kind of really think about it, and it's all about systems and understanding game mechanics. I think that because we know we've been playing like a butt ton of Unreal Engine based games, so we know the limitations within that. Apart from that, there are some clever people who do crazy stuff to the engine, but you can stick Mass Effect, Unreal Tournament, probably Rage, a whole bunch of games like that together. You know your limits. You know what you kind of expect to get out of it. So you can use those. Not so much looking for the ultimate exploits or anything like that, but you know, but if you're playing on a really difficult difficulty setting, you get more, especially in kind of first-person shooters, where you get more armored, characters or whatever. It takes a lot more bullets to kill. You're looking for the cheapest way to kill them. You're not looking for the most, you know, it's not like armor where you can take like just a snipe from 800 meters away from your bush and you make a guy fall over pretty quick. It's all about just finding the cheapest. What's the best word to describe it now? We always use the word cheap. Because it was obviously it's cheap on ammo and probably makes your character a lot faster.
Yeah. Yeah. See, because this is something I've kind of thought about, and to a certain extent, I think you've both kind of hit on it. Is that we are definitely getting more used to games and possibly more used to playing them, therefore know what to expect in certain situations. But we also need starting to know a lot of the base engines inside and out, like you mentioned with Unreal. But I think one of the other things as well is that you just kind of know what to expect that a game is just going to do. A first-person shooter, you just know that there is going to be at the end of the level, or generally speaking, at the end of the level, there is going to be this bullet sponge. So you are going to try and save your power weapons for that. There's nothing really to kind of, I think, mix it up anymore. And I don't think it's so much that the games have gotten easier. It's just that we know what to expect.
But don't you hate when you play a game and you get kind of too good at it, and then you kind of save your weapons for like the boss characters and never get to use them? And you're like, oh shit, just clocked the game. Got tons of rockets, tons of this, and you're like, well, I could have probably played a bit more of an explosive, fun game. So I was really conservative.
Just never use my grenades at all. I just I'll save them for the boss. I'll save them for the boss, and I never use them.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of that, one of the most fun games I've actually had recently was probably, well, when I say recently, I talk within the last couple of years. I actually played the original Tomb Raider on PlayStation, and I played it through start to finish only using her pistols. Just made a conscious effort not to use any of the other weapons. So I didn't use a shotgun, didn't use the assault rifle, didn't use the dual Uzis. I just used the pistols the whole way through the game.
Did it kind of grind your gears that you couldn't alternate trigger fire?
Yes, it did. Yeah, but then, but that's something that we've just kind of got gotten used to is just having that alt fire. But when you're playing an old retro game like that where you didn't have that mechanic, and what actually ground my gears the most wasn't even the fact the lack of alt trigger fire, it was the lack of thumbstick use. Because we've gotten so used to using analog sticks on console that when you go back and play like an early generation PlayStation game where it was D-pad only, I kept on going to put my thumbs on thumbsticks and wondering why the game wasn't moving anywhere. So I actually had to swap out the controller to my original controller just so that I didn't biomechanically start doing that. That was the most frustrating thing, was trying to use thumbsticks that just weren't used.
And I suppose those mechanics are using the D-pad, especially like the old PlayStation ones, like not so good for getting closer to edges and stuff like that, making critical jumps.
Um, Actually, the thing is with that particular game, there was some not so much exploits, but just with the way it was when you're doing the critical jumps, it was actually a really simple method. You just basically walk up to the edge. So from memory, it was like R1, move the button forward, and she'd stop at the edge. Release the R1 button, push the D-pad back so she jumps backwards one whole block. You run and jump at the same time, and that's the perfect running jump. So once you actually knew that mechanic of it, all those puzzles that would normally be, you'd think, oh, that's just going to be so difficult, were actually just not that difficult at all because it was just the same technique every time. I remember when I played it through first back in the day in 1996 or whenever it was. I struggled with this one level really, really hard because you basically there was a long a long bridge with a section missing out of the middle of it, and you had to jump across to get to the other side to get a piece for a cog to solve a puzzle elsewhere in the level. And I just kept on mistiming this jump, so I ended up taking the run all the way back to the very start of the bridge, running right across, and then mistiming it and plummeting to my death. It wasn't until many, many, many years later when I was playing it back again, and I can't remember how I found out. I must have seen it online when somebody was talking about that particular mechanic, and somebody had said, "Oh, you just walk up to the edge, jump back one step, and run forward, and that's the perfect jump, eh?" And as soon as I realised that, it was like, "Oh, you're fucking joking!" It just made such a difference to the entire game because all of a sudden, all those jumps that were really critical on timing were just actually not that difficult anymore, and it became quite easy. And I guess that sort of comes back down to just learning the mechanics of the game and learning how the engine works in a certain situation.
Yeah, kind of probably speaking of that, like, were you on the internet in like 1996?
No, 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 no. It was some years later,
Okay,
as in quite a few years later.
because literally I just reminisced then, and I thought this is going back to I was like Form 2, so PlayStation just being relaunched, etc. Um, I remember like the only reason I went on the internet was to go to PC Gamer to see Coconut Monkey.
Yeah.
That's literally it. And then like Diablo launched like would have been a year like after that, 96, 97, Diablo 1.
Yeah, to be honest, I was never into PC games back then, so I'm not sure when the original
Hey,
Diablo came out.
it got released on PlayStation.
Yeah, that it did.
Shared screen co-op.
It did actually too. Yes. Oh, maybe that's something I might look for.
And there
Yeah.
was no
So
split either, so it was like kind of limiting because you only that one isometric hit.
yeah, yeah. I think at the time, because I was relatively young, still over 20. But I was actually earning my own money at that point and out flatting and being a young 20s guy in Christchurch at the time. Pretty much involved going to the pub Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, and basically getting drunk. So any disposable income, I pretty much drunk or worse away. So I didn't really get to spend a lot of money on games that I did later in my years. So I probably just missed out on it because none of my friends were really into it, I guess. But I do have all my old consoles still, so it is still a possibility that I can find a copy secondhand and play it for old time's sake.
Levo, did you hit out the PS1 much?
Yeah, I actually remember having the PlayStation 1 in my room, just like wake up in the morning. Oh, what do I do? Oh, I'll just jam Crash Bandicoot for however many hours it was before I had to go out.
Did you guys ever like play games so much? I remember doing this with Quake 2 on PlayStation, which you could do like get the multi-tap into a four-player like deathmatch. I remember like playing and then you got the PlayStation sweats. You know, you're playing games and it's like your armpits start dripping for no reason.
Oh, that's such a gross feeling. Seriously. Yeah, it generally happens to me when I'm obviously not so much anymore because I've got much better personal hygiene. But yeah, back in the day, yeah, it used to happen quite a bit when we'd have a few of us around, again doing that whole multi-tap thing, or in the days of PlayStation 2, might have been link cable with a couple of consoles, or certainly in the days of Halo where we had like mini LANs at people's houses. You just have, in fact, Halo is a really good example. You'd have a house with 16, young, sort of older teenage, young, early 20s, late 20s guys in this house, all sweating up a storm, drinking lots of bad drinks, eating lots of bad food, no air conditioning, and it would just be this utter filth pit. So yeah, no, that definitely used to be a thing for sure.
I'm lucky I didn't suffer that.
I wouldn't say suffer to like embrace.
No, I just got what was it, PlayStation Thumb. I can't, I think it was like a sting or something that I'd feel in my thumb. I can't even really remember it. I remember like having some sort of pain in my thumb just for playing so long, so much.
I got that from playing Cool Borders, and I don't know what it was. I had numb thumbs, but it was like showed you how crap a PlayStation player was back in the day because I pressed the controller so hard to try and make a jump into a spin.
Yeah, the whole PlayStation Thumb thing. That's a really interesting thing because I know that sensation you're talking about, and I'll be honest, I haven't had that in years.
Maybe it's just a new design of controllers or something.
It could be
Ergonomics.
ergonomics. Yeah, that'll be it.
All right. What's everyone's probably top two or top three PlayStation 1 games? Let's rattle them out.
That's a difficult one to just spring out on me. I'm probably just gonna go with Muppets Race Mania, Sled Storm,
Oh yeah.
and Crash Team Racing. All racing games, but all probably the most time I ever put into any PlayStation 1 games.
Nice, nice.
I'd probably have to rock out Final Fantasy 7. Probably one of the most games I've ever sunk hours into. Twisted Metal 2 because it was phenomenal. And probably my all-time favourite, Suikoden, like just JRPG heaven.
Yeah, nice. Mine would be probably Wipeout 2096. I'm a huge fan of Wipeout, as anybody in the forums will know, and that's always been my go-to thing. So I'm completely disappointed there's going to be no Wipeout at this stage for PlayStation 4. 2096 just it expanded on the awesomeness of what there was the original Wipeout with better graphics, better track design, more stuff going on, better weapons, and just better everything. I would also be talking Final Fantasy VII because that was just a phenomenal game. You've got 3 discs of just JRPG awesomeness. I just spent hours on that, and I'll be honest, if I didn't have guides at the time, I wouldn't have gotten through that game. I really wouldn't have. There's just so many little intricacies that if you didn't know to look out for or know to do, you were going to struggle. Certainly when you got towards the end of that, with trying to defeat Sephiroth at the end, and then it also had some really tough, feely moments in it as well. When, like for example, when Aerith died, that just completely took me by. I was dumbfounded when that happened, and it just had all those amazing feels. And I think my third game, it would probably be Metal Gear Solid. That was just awesome. You had to smoke cigarettes to see where laser wires were. Otherwise, you got blown up. So you either killed yourself by smoking slowly, or you tripped a mine. It was such a brilliant, brilliant plan. It was such a great idea. And something that's been in the franchise since forever. I need to hide from the scout. I'm going to hide in this big box that just happens to be in my pocket. It's just such a just great little stupid things, but actually made the game what it was. And then, with Psycho Mantis reading the game saves on your memory card to tell you what you'd been playing, you just think, oh well, this is pretty cool. And then having to beat him by swapping controllers from controller 1 to controller 2. It was just really, really clever designs in the gameplay mechanics. So yeah, Metal Gear Solid would definitely be up there as well.
I'd have to say that a lot of those game designers for the original Sony were just phenomenal. And you do bring up Metal Gear Solid, and it was just. Were you just tune into radio frequencies for things as well? Is that right?
It was not tuning into radio frequencies, but you had codecs, which is basically like an internal phone line to various people. But one of them wasn't actually ever given out at the game. Wasn't actually ever given out in the game itself, and you actually had to find it. But you were told where to find it, and it was basically something like you can only find. I can't remember whose it was now, but it's on the book. And you're thinking, what book? I haven't picked up a book. So you're going through all your inventory in the game thinking, I haven't picked up a book. Where is this bloody thing? It was on the game manual. It was actually on the back cover of the case. It was this codex that you needed. And it was just there all along. It's just really good little subtle things like that were just really, really clever. And, you play games like that and you just think, yeah, that was awesome.
Did either you guys do N64? Because I kind of hated on that stuff. I was like a Sega, Sony, and then I was gutted when my granddad got a Sony PlayStation as opposed to Sega Saturn, but he made the right choice.
I didn't really get into home gaming myself with my own consoles until PlayStation. And as I sort of touched on earlier, being a young 20s guy at Christchurch, my money was mostly spent on alcohol and other things. So I didn't really have the disposable income to get into other console systems, and basically since then I've been more or less a Sony guy through and through, and obviously Xbox as well when Halo came out. Having said that, in the last few years I have actually bought myself a Nintendo 64, and yeah, it's a pretty cool little system. I quite like it. It's had some really, really good titles. It's just a shame that later on in life they have fallen by the wayside, just with their own what's the word I'm looking for, just with doing everything for themselves. It's such a shame that this great company Nintendo has kind of fallen back to being almost non-existent, except to the complete Nintendo fanboys, because they have some great titles in their catalog that people just won't get to play because for whatever reason they will not buy a Nintendo, whether it's because they're not going to spend $500 on an underpowered system that only play one game that they want, or because it doesn't do anything else but just play that game. Whereas at least with Xbox and Sony, you can play DVDs, or you can play Blu-rays, or you can watch YouTube and do all these other things with your console.
That probably is a really good segue to Ouya, because Ouya was intention to bring the gaming back to the gamers.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Bringing it back to the TV.
Do we have some news on the Ouya?
Well, we don't have any news, but we do have a top 5. Okay, so if you go to ouya.tv/games, they have an O rank which has a ranking of every single game and app on the Ouya system. So let's look at the top 5 for this week. At number 5 we have Flash Out 2. Number 4, FPSE for Ouya. Number 3, Bomb Squad. Number 2, Amazing Frog, the Swindon Space Program, which I've got to be honest, that title sounds pretty freaking cool. I might have to get an Ouya just to have a look at that title. And number 1, we have Pack Full of Fun, which was only released just this month. So there you
How
have it.
much
The
fun could
top
you put in a
five.
pack?
Well, it all depends on the size of the pack, really, doesn't it? Now, if it's like a a, a pack of
I'm having a look at it right now, and it's saying that it's bringing some AAA games from genres being streamed directly to your home. It has Lego series, Pac-Man, races, and something more on a monthly subscription.
But like Pac-Man was AAA back in like 1970.
New one that came out recently. It's
but
just
There's a new
a
Pac-Man?
streaming service to the
yeah,
Ouya.
definitely looks it looks like it's a streaming service, but they've got things like Batman Arkham Asylum,
That
which
sounds amazing.
actually does sound pretty cool. Um, yeah, so it's like a subscription service where you can kind of play all sorts. They've got let's just have a look here. Got Ace Combat Assault Horizon, which, well, let's be honest, is pretty meh anyway. Lord of the Rings Lego. You've got Grid. Lord of the Rings Batman 2.
Operation Flashpoint Dragon Rising.
They actually have some pretty good games that they're streaming, and I'm just kind of wondering how it'll work.
Just hold on to your ER, folks, because don't put it away in its box yet.
Or if you haven't unpacked it from your box, maybe get ready to unpack it from its box. There could be a game. There could be a piece of software for you coming out soon. It will just be released. Dear. Anyway, so there we go, people. That was the Ouya. Stay tuned next time for what's the top 5 in a fortnight's time.
Oh dear.
Is there anything else that either of you guys would like to touch on? Because I've sort of hijacked it with the whole PlayStation thing, which I'll be honest was completely unintentional.
I was thinking about touching a little bit on Orion. Sort of that kind of terrible game that you do just buy in the sort of like bargain bin sales to just play for a few hours with your mates. It's just that sort of stupid kind of fun thing. Me and Keely have been playing it a bit together. What did you think of it?
I think it's on a bit of an dirty old DirectX 9, bit of a dated engine, but the core gameplay mechanics of it, which is if you're playing kind of I think it's called the Horde mode, where literally you just fight waves of dinosaurs, which is kind of badass in its own. You get 3 classes: an assault, support, and medic.
That guy with the cloaking.
The guy, well, he's kind of support as well, but it's really just it's a recon class, isn't it?
Yeah, recon.
So, and I played a couple of games by myself because I thought, I should better mesh this out in medium mode. You get 10 waves of dinosaurs after you. There's certain kind of objectives to do halfway through, like go capture this point. There's big dinosaurs that are huge bullet sponges, and they do mass damage. The bots are kind of useless if they're on your team. But kind of the weaponry is kind of fun. Like, when the dinosaur swarms come, there's lots of raptors, and there's these stupid little small ones you can't really find, but they don't do much damage.
They just sneak up on me in the grass, and I never see them until I'm just like down and I need to kill something to revive myself.
Yeah, and then you kind of get like experience points. You can kind of get extra perks. I don't know, it's like
what those experience points actually do, though.
yeah. I mean, if you can, like, especially on Steam sale, if it's on sale, you can buy a 4-pack for ridiculously cheap. And even if you brought it to a LAN and jammed it out for for an hour or two, you've made your money's worth out of it. It is enjoyable. It's not Left 4 Dead 2 with its prettiness, but fighting dinosaurs, firing rockets at them, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we've got 2 copies of it to give away. So if you send in for the subject line, I want to shoot a velociraptor in the face, to alt.crimson@gmail.com, yeah, you could be in the draw to win a free copy of that on Steam.
Sweet, nice giveaway.
Yeah, we also jammed like a bit of a is it called It's kind of multiplayer deathmatch, but there's like dinosaurs at the same time.
Yeah, I found out that you can actually save up your credits and just like send a T-Rex or something over just to mess with the enemy. I haven't quite figured out what I was actually supposed to be doing there though.
The bases were like crazy distance apart.
Yeah, I was like probably about a kilometre away before I realised I shouldn't have run this far. I'm halfway there and it's taken me 5 minutes to get to this point. I should have taken a vehicle or something. I saw some random building. I thought, oh yes, they might have a vehicle there, and it's just like decoration that has nothing there. I was so gutted. And then as soon as I get to the enemy base, there's this sniper that just kills me instantly.
And then you messaged me saying, "Don't go to the base, you will die." And what I do? Got to the base. I did the old snake dance, which is strafing and jumping and crouching, which I then got sniped and died. And then
you describing that actually reminds me of a scene in Generation Kill. Basically, it was set in one of the wars in Iraq, and they've got this interviewer guy, and there's a scene where the Marines have to basically get from one end of an alleyway to another, and they've got this reporter with them. So the Marines, they come out, they run down this alleyway, get to the end, and they do it one by one. When it's the reporter's turn to do it, he starts doing this big, long, serpentine run, dodging, ducking left and right, at which point all the Marines are looking at him going, "What the fuck are you doing? I'm just trying to make it harder for them to hit me. All you're doing is taking longer to get there, making yourself a bigger target. Just run straight." And I thought that was actually quite interesting, because I would have thought, the whole serpentine path would have been the way to go, but no, apparently you actually meant to just run straight on down the middle. So there you go. So that's why you died, Keely. It was because of the whole serpentine path.
well,
You just got to run straight on down.
like from playing but I don't know if you guys have had the joys of playing one of the greatest mods ever for such a great open box sandbox game. Warband, Mountain Blade Warband, Napoleonic Wars.
I love that. I just go out, run out with a fife, just annoy my entire team at how useless I am just because I'm running around with a musical instrument while everyone's got their muskets and swords out.
But the best bit is because when it first came out on it would have been a good couple of years ago actually. A butt ton of Game Planet people got together and formed a line, and for some strange reason, there's some really, really good Mount and Blade players in our forums that we often frequent, and they just so we formed a line. There was about 12 of us, 10, 12 of us on a good night. Famous GP user Mox had no microphone, and his missus was giving him shit, so he still couldn't mic out orders because you have to it's kind of like we did a proper line battle, which for any listeners that don't know what a line battle is, it's pretty much the easiest way to die in a war. You form a line of people, you present arms, you shoot in a line, your weapons are completely inaccurate, and your mates die left and right of you. But so we had massive battles, and the only way to win is when you fired your musket, it took a good kind of 15, 20 seconds to reload. So you'd have to go out and melee people. So the snake dance, which was the strafing, jumping, squatting, up low thing, was the only way to win. And that is my story on snake dancing.
Awesome. I've never actually played it, but I do like the idea of taking a shot and having 15 or 20 seconds to reload it. That sounds actually pretty freaking cool.
I think my favourite thing about their reloading system is that it actually saves at what point you are. So if you're ramming the shot down the barrel, and then you change weapon to a sword or something, you can still go back to that point where you were when you were reloading, rather than having to start the whole thing over and over again.
Oh,
And another
okay.
brilliant mechanic was that if you went through a river and didn't have your arms over your head, you'd lose your shot and you have to reload,
Nice.
which was just
Nice.
phenomenal.
Yeah,
And you
no,
had partisans as well, so it was just people wearing grey clothes with pitchforks, and you got to murder them, which can be
sounds
fun and tragic.
So going to need to get some sort of game going with all the GPs with number two.
Yeah. So what game we're going to play in the next fortnight, gentlemen?
okay. Now this week I will actually do it. So let me have a look in my Steam library.
Because both you guys haven't played much Left 4 Dead 2, right?
I haven't played any Left 4 Dead 2.
Same.
Okay. We're going to play this because you need to go. You need to have Mercy Hospital in your life. You need to understand tank, and you just need to understand how awesome the Half-Life Source engine is. It is the source of Source.
Okay, sweet. Well, it's installing now, so they're ready to go in no time. So I'm definitely keen for doing that over the next fortnight for sure.
And if any other listeners want to join in, just look for our tags on Steam, which should be Ninja Keely or Keely the Ninja.
Crimson ZV.
And a complete Muppet.
Yes, that's up there with Bart Simpson, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Alright. Things make me happy?
Things that are making me happy. Very simple thing, actually. In the last couple of weeks, I've been hearing quite a bit of the Prodigy's new track called Nasty. Prodigy haven't really released anything in the last 6 or 7 years since Invaders Must Die, and Nasty is continuing on from that just brilliantly. So happy to be listening to the Prodigy again.
For me, it would be that my Far Cry 4 Rat Collector's Edition arrived today. And I'm also up to the last few episodes of the 1997 series of Berserk, which is the most utterly soul-destroying moment in anime. Basically, they rescue their leader from the dungeon. He's been tortured for an entire year. He's got no tongue. He's had his tendons in his arms cut, and so basically he can't move, can't talk, can't do anything for himself. And he had a sort of necklace or charm thing, and it brings in a whole bunch of monsters that make him become reborn by selling out all his friends and his entire army that went to rescue him to become the Demon King, and then he rapes his best friend's love interest in front of him.
I can see what you're saying. Just great.
Whew, heavy shit. 10 o'clock at night on a Monday night.
Is it 10? Oh yeah, it is.
It's getting pretty close.
Whew.
All right, now, Kelly, have you got something that's making you happy that's not going to make me want to slip my wrists?
Oh, this is not going to be a PG podcast anymore. What's making me happy? Wow, Jesus.
Yes.
Probably like I've had some really big good stuff happen at work. I'm gonna hopefully go to conference and present a topic at my professional body's national conference in the middle of the year, so that's pretty exciting because that's new for me. But really, work is pretty, work's work. So what's really making me happy is that it's only 4 days till the weekend.
Yay.
Woohoo.
Yeah.
4 days to the weekend. Booyah. And on one last parting thing, I'm going to leave with the Kevin L quote of the day. In this thread, we slaughter the English language. So I'm your host, Aaron. We have Levi and we have Keely. Thank you very much for listening to the Games Rambling and Backlogs podcast. This is our first, and today's date is the 26th of January 2015. Thank you for listening.
Cheerio.
I'm spanning my grass, walking back so when my grass you're fading. I'm waiting so long.